Zamute.
Доброго дня.
Hi everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Lydia Simak. I'm going to perform today and tell you about different activities that work in primary classroom. And I will also show you how to adapt the same activity to different needs, different levels, probably different ages of students, so that you have a couple of solid activities that you could continue using with your students. And that's what we're going to do. Okay, thank you guys. That was the wasted 2 minutes. Thank you for telling me. My name is Lydia Simak. Welcome to my webinar. I'm going to be sharing my experience with you, and I'll be talking to you about different activities that you could use in primary classroom. I wanted to prepare the webinar to show you how you could adapt the same activity so that it would work for slightly different ages and levels, and the activity that you could recycle over and over again and adapt to your students' needs, so that you had a solid, repertoire of activities that you might use over and over again to teach your students well. I will ask you to keep muted. If you want to ask your question, please drop the question in the into the chat. I'm going to be reading. I'm going to be commenting and answering your question. Also, it would be very nice if you reacted to my questions as well, because a dialogue is always better than a monologue. One more time. My name is Lydia Simak. I'm working and I work at Great Education Center. Right now, I'm, working from here, from Kiev. So thank you for joining, and let's start. Okay, I'm going to share my presentation with you, and I will start talking. Okay, here it is. Just a moment. Okay, so here is the presentation. Can you please let me know if you can see that in the chat? Thank you very much for your reactions. Very well. Great. So we're talking about practice activities that work. Before we start talking about the activities as they are, I wanted to ask you a little question. So teaching young learners, it requires something which is essential and very important. I gave you only the first letters, R, 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 and F. If you have any ideas what those R's and F stand for, can you please drop them in the chat? Let us look together. Waiting for your, cannot, sorry. Oh, okay. But you could try to guess, actually. So what could be R? 3 R's, actually. Responsibility. That is a very good guess, Marina. Thank you. Probably you meant that we need to develop responsibility in the learners, right? That is not really what I meant for, but thank you for your guess. React, Oksana, thank you for your response. Also a very good suggestion, but not what I thought about. Review, revise, and fun. Thank you, ladies. Irina, Olena, and Julia. Yes, you're actually you're right. So the first R I was thinking of is actually recycling. So this is really important that we recycle the language that our students learn in the lessons, because as you remember, as you know, as practicing teachers, a lot of you are young learners teachers, you know that young learners, they have very good short-term memory. So they kind of catch the language very fast. But if you do not revise it, if you do not recycle, they tend to forget it easily because it takes effort to actually transmit that short-term memory into long-term. That's why we have to recycle and recycle and recycle all the time. One more reason why, because usually children do not have opportunity to practice the language outside the classroom. They rarely have anyone to speak to. They're not surrounded by English, and that's why recycling is crucial. So I hope that the activities I'm going to show you will help you recycle the language that you will learn with your students. Okay, one more is reinforcement. So reinforcement, this is the same as making stronger. So we don't only recycle the language, we kind of gradually add the challenge little by little so that the students don't only remember but also progressed. So reinforcing is very important for a while classroom. Another R, this is routines. Natalie, hi. Okay, another R, this is routines. This is very important that you establish routines in your classroom, because unfortunately, without routines, students cannot normally learn, because this is what the young learners need. They need clear rules. They need to understand what's happening in class. They need to know the possible scenario of what's going to happen, even though they like that element of surprise. But the environment has to be predictable, safe, and the routines are very important for young learners. Again, that's why reusing, recycling the same kind of activity, but in a slightly different way. This is what actually helps you develop the language skills of your students. And I'm going to demonstrate how to do it today on some examples. So F is for fun. You're right. So there was a response from someone about the fun. I cannot find it now, but yes, you were right, actually. So the last F is fun. What we have to do with our learners is we have to provide them with some fun activities, because this is the main motivator of their learning. So actually, if you follow this, if you recycle, if you reinforce, if you establish clear routines to establish safe environment, if you provide some element of fun, this is how you will help your students learn, remember, enjoy the lessons. Okay, so that was a teeny tiny theoretical part. We're going to move to actual activities. So the first activity I wanted to show you is color dictation. I don't know if you have tried it in your lessons, but with the very young learners, by very young, I mean 6-year-old, because I don't really work with younger students. Before they even start writing, I have such dictations. So they have a picture, and what I sometimes do is I put some little numbers on different objects or parts of the objects. Here you can see my numbers. And I ask my students, please color one blue. Color 2 green. Color 3 gray. So even at the very beginning, from the very first lessons, with very young learners who almost know nothing, you can actually have little dictations with them, because you can consider this a dictation. So they need to hear a number in English, they need to identify it on your piece of paper, and they need to color the corresponding section the same color as you tell them and as they hear. So even from the very beginning, when your learners just started learning, they only can count, I don't know, up to 6 or to 10. They only know some colors. You already can establish some dictations with them. So this is one of the most basic things you could do with your learners, especially with very young learners, even preschoolers. Probably you will have a question, and this is what happens in my class as well. What can you do if your students color with a different speed? Some of them are very, very fast, and they finish coloring much faster than the others. The others are slower, and it might cause tears if someone hasn't finished. For example, one of the solutions could be that when you dictate, you can ask students just to put some teeny tiny dots or just a few lines of the color that they need to use for this picture or element of picture. And then you could give them some time a bit later to finish the coloring. So if they know, again, if this is your routine, if they know that they will have a chance to finish coloring a bit later, it will prevent some of the tears. And this will work much better for classroom management. So this is the first step. So what can we do with this activity as our children, grow? So I'm showing you what could be the next step. For example, when they know more language, when they know the objects, when they can name, identify the objects in the picture, you don't say color 1 green. You start naming the objects. You can say color the tree brown, color the bird blue, color the flower pink. So the next step is when your students already know some language and you switch from numbers to objects. So this is one of the activity that can grow and develop with your learners. And so this is the next step. Have you got any ideas how we can develop deeper and use such picture dictations on a new level? If you have ideas, can you drop in the chat? Okay, there is R. Yeah, Yulia? Positions. Yeah, Serge, that's a good idea to talk about positions. Yeah, yes, that's a good suggestion. I was thinking, I was thinking in the response, like I was thinking about using this as the dictation, making it more challenging for your learner. Use bigger numbers. Okay, probably that's a good idea. Give instructions to each other to color. Yeah, Tanya, thank you very much. You could actually use, like I will talk about it a little bit later. Tanya, thank you very much for your idea. Before students dictate to each other, you can actually ask them to produce questions and ask you what color is what. You can teach them what color is, and they will, before they find out the color, they have to ask you a question like, what color is the cat? What color is the sun? What color is the tree? So you could actually ask them to produce the language so that they could color. So this is the next micro step in their development. And then they could actually, you could actually turn it into something different. They can start speculating. They can say to the teacher, I think the house is orange, or I think the cat is gray. So you could use any language that is, you know, that is being taught and learned in class, and use it for them to get the answer from you. And then the next step, so this is what Tanya Poklad has suggested, and she's absolutely right. This is for, of course, more advanced kids, older kids, who can work together in a pair, who can work individually without that much of the teacher support, who have been taught to do that. What you could do is you could actually give them, it could be the same picture, or it could be different pictures, and they can actually color the picture on their own if they like, and then dictate to their partner, or they can ask their partner to color the picture for them the way they want it. So and they can just say, color this like this. So color the house green, color the cat gray. You could use the same pictures for them if you like, or you can try using different pictures so that it's a little bit more interesting. It's up to you. But again, the next step could be to ask them to tell each other how they want to color, how they want to have their picture colored. Again, you can teach them using different language, asking questions, speculating, whatever. It's up to you. Another step would be drawing dictation. When students do not color, they need to listen to the description of the picture and draw. They don't see each other's picture. They're sitting back to back. They have different pictures, and they need to kind of dictate what is in their picture, and their partner has to listen and draw. The pictures can be very, very simple. If you look at the second picture, for example, the one with the rain, it's actually very simple, and it doesn't take that much time to draw. And but still, look at how many details there are. So there are 3 clouds. It's raining. There are people who are under the tree. There is the tree that is between the houses. There are 3 houses. There are a different number of windows in each house. There is also comparison, like the house in the middle is taller. So it depends on how much language the students know and how much detail you will help them notice, teach them notice. They can actually use, recycle a lot of language when they do that, you know, drawing dictation to each other. Okay. Yeah, so Tanya, that's a good point. So they can use prepositions and so on. So yes, this is how you can recycle a familiar activity. And we remember how important the routines are. So the activity is familiar. It's something that we color or something that we draw, but depending on how much language our students know, depending on their age, depending on how comfortable they are working in a pair, depending on how much they can produce, you can use the same activity in very different ways, and the activity grows with your students. So that was only one I wanted to show you today. Moving on. Making it even more challenging. I would say that this is for older kids, like probably 9, 10-year-olds or older. So instead of drawing dictations, they can have real dictations, and they can actually work in pairs, again, back to back. If you have a look at these 2 texts, this is the same text, but parts of that have been removed. And student A knows the words that student B doesn't know, and vice versa. Student B knows the words that A doesn't know, and together they need to dictate the missing words to each other. So that would be the first step. Again, when we dictate, students can do that because they know the word, like first of all, they need to identify which word they need to dictate to each other. They need to help each other with the spelling and the position of the word, like which word are we talking about? So where is it? In which sentence? Which is the word before that? And the spelling. So it's a good idea. to try it with your students. And also it increases their responsibility. They learn how to navigate texts. The next step could be not dictating, but probably teaching your students to ask for the missing words. So they cannot just say, they need to, like you can teach them how to ask and how to ask for help, how to ask to dictate, how to ask to spell. So this is also a very good activity if you want your students to produce a lot of language. Moving on, this is another step for the dictations. Again, this is for kind of advanced kids who are good at working in pairs or in teams. So what usually happens, it's called a wall dictation. When you here, like in this very activity, we have 4 different dinosaurs who look very different. And we have 4 descriptions of these dinosaurs. What we can do is we can actually divide our class into 4 groups, ideally, of several students. And we need to put them in the corners of the classroom and stick the descriptions of the dinosaurs on, on the wall. I don't know, on the opposite wall or something. So the wall they have to walk to or run to. Make sure the kids don't kill each other, they don't bump, that the running is safe, or it's not going to be running. You can ask them to jump on one leg or something to prevent the mess. So what they need to do is they need to read their description, not all the 4, but only their description. So they need to run to the wall, read the description, remember as much as they can, run back and dictate it to the group. To make it a little bit more fun, you can ask them to run in turns. For example, one person runs 2 times, then they have to swap, then the next person runs 2 times, and they dictate as much as they can. So what happens? So students need to read, they need to remember something, they need to come back, dictate it, probably help students with the spelling. And you see that the texts are kind of challenging, so that they're not that easy. And it will take some time for the group to run, read, remember, come back and dictate. And after they have done that, they can actually now sit quietly, read their description and decide which dinosaur, which picture matches the description that they, copied from the wall. So this is the kind of a running dictation. This is a very good activity for kids, to develop some reading skill, working with spelling. It is also very good for them, to develop this ability to work in groups and in teams, which is also very important because this is something that we eventually have to develop in our kids. And if you teach them that they have to run in turns, that they have to be careful, they have to try hard and remember that less is more. They don't need to remember 5 sentences, they can remember a couple of words, that the quality goes first. So this is a good activity, which is also, let's say, another step for our dictation that was just coloring the picture first, and now it developed to the wall dictation. Okay, so moving on. So that was the dictation that I wanted to show you, that you can start using it when the students cannot read or write and they only know just colors and a couple of numbers, and it can evolve into such a complicated activity when students copy the text from the wall, read it and identify which picture the description matches. Okay, another activity for today that I wanted to show you. This is a kind of a warm-up that I like practicing with my kids. So what you see happening right now in the picture is that the teacher is sitting. You can be sitting, you can be standing, doesn't really matter, in circle with the kids, and they throw the ball. I actually use it as a warm-up, and I try to actually turn this warm-up into the activity that teaches my students and recycles some language. I will show you how. This is the typical dialogue that happens between me and my students. I throw the ball, and I ask the student who catches the ball, I ask them a question. For example, are you sleepy today? They respond, yes, I am. Next student could be something like, do you like broccoli? The response is, yes, I do. Can you swim? Yes, I can. What do you think I want my students to practice while we're doing this activity? Can you please drop your ideas to the chat? What are we practicing when we're doing this? Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Irina. This is yes, no questions. Next question. Yes, and short answers. Look at my questions. Do you think I ask the same pattern, like do you, or can you, or are you, or do I mix them? Yes, Serge. I don't ask, yeah, I mix them, thank you. Why do you think I ask them different questions? Because it's kind of challenging. Yes, noticing different patterns, and yeah, this is natural. I agree, Serge. What I want them to learn is actually, this is the grammar they have already learned before. So they know do you, can you, are you. So this is nothing new to them. But yes, Tatiana, this is revision, exactly, and reinforcement. So it's important because they keep forgetting. They need to be trained to give short answers to questions. They need to, it's a good idea to pay attention to the patterns. It's a good idea to help them remember that you answer the question the way it starts from. If it starts with are you have to answer yes, I am. If it starts with do, they have to answer yes, I do, no, I don't. If it's can, yes, I can, no, I can't. So anyway, this helps them get that fluency when they respond to short questions. And this is a very good warm-up. So that's what I very often, almost every lesson, do with my kids. And it helps them then naturally respond to yes, no questions. And they learn to do it correctly. So this is a good warm-up. This is something that I do with the first and second year learning students. Next, I'm going to show you how I move on, how I dig deeper. And can you please look at the next slide and notice what is different to this slide. So my next step, notice what changed. And can you please drop your answers in the chat? Oh, sorry. Yeah. So what has changed? What is different in this activity? I hope you're typing. Interaction pattern. Yes, Tanya, you're right. Exactly. So first, thank you guys. Thank you, Ina. Thank you, Irina. Thank you, Svetlana. Yes, the first, I was the person who asked the question. I was the person who threw the balls, who asked the question, and got a response. Then I teach my students to ask different questions. Exactly. Again, it doesn't happen in split second. It takes a lot of time to teach them, but this is the next natural step. I ask my students to ask and answer questions. So this is the development of this activity. So the activity is the same, but there is a development. It becomes more student-centered. Okay, and another change of the slide and see what happens next. What is the next step? So please notice what changes here and write in the chat. Yes, reformulating. Yeah. Any other ideas? Yes, exactly, Svetlana. Thank you. So I stimulate my students to produce more language. So before they ask a question, they need to say what they do, what they can, what they like, right? So first, no, that's not WH questions, guys. Be careful. I don't expect young learners to be fluent and very accurate with WH questions, you know, random questions at the beginning. It's difficult. But the next step would be producing some information before they ask this yes, no questions. So it also helps develop fluency in your students, and it helps reinforce the language, and it helps them respond naturally. So again, another little activity. This is a warm-up, and usually we don't pay much attention to warm-ups because we consider them as just a transition from corridor to the lesson, kind of switching students into English. Actually, you could use warm-ups as the tool to reinforce, recycle the language and develop fluency with your students. So give it a try. It works very well, and you will see how the students change and how the language that they produce changes. Okay, moving on to the next activity I wanted to show you today. Does anybody know what it is? I know that Natalia knows what it is. Natalia, shh. Or you can write down if you remember, that's okay. And the first question, do you know what it is? If you know, drop a line. And if you know what it is it the whole task? A puzzle? Not really, but that's a good guess, Irina. Thank you. Any other ideas? Crosswords? Yes, Claudia, you're right, but jigsaw, yes. So this is a jigsaw crossword, and it's called half crosswords, right? And this is the second piece. So what happens is actually students do it in pairs, but usually when we do crossword, this is the activity that we do individually because we have some clues, we have that empty squares we have to fill in with the words. But in that case, students know half of the words and student B knows the other half. And they have to ask each other, like, what is number 3? Or what is 3 down? What is number 5? Or what is 5 across? And their partner has to tell them. But do they tell the word itself, or do they do it in a bit different way? So do the students produce just provide the words to each other, or they don't do it that directly? What do you think? Please drop in the chat. Spell, yes, before they spell, they explain it. Yeah, thank you. They provide description. Thank you very much. Yes, Pavlina, thank you, Irina, Pavlina, Svetlana, Inna. Yes, Inna, that's a good, so the question that you ask is, what is number 5? And the partner, they have to provide the description, but are kids good at descriptions? Probably not very good. And this is something that you have to teach them. And the question is, how can we do that? I will go back to the previous activity and I will show you that I use this ball and such activity when I throw the ball for the students to play a guessing game. For example, when we play fruit and vegetables, I give them a description. I say that it is round. It can be red, green, or yellow. What fruit is this? Do you know? If you know, write it, please. It is round. It can be green, red, or yellow. Apple. Yeah, Ina, thank you. So yes. Okay, my next fruit. Listen and guess. It is yellow. It is long. Come on. No, it's not a pear. Pears are not really round. Yeah, banana, yellow and long. Okay, my next fruit, which is challenging for the kids, but they like it, the last one. It is round. It is brown and green on top. It is brown outside, green on top, yellow inside. Not kiwi, but you're close. No, yeah, this is a pineapple. Thank you, Vladislava. No, coconut is not yellow inside. I think it's white inside and it's not green on top. Okay, so anyway, what you can do is you can teach them to identify fruit or other objects, giving them very, very simple description. You can start with the color, then you add a shape to the color, you add something like outside, inside, And you add something like you put it on pizza, you put it in borscht, you make juice out of it. So you give them a bit more and more complicated description. So first you give them as a teacher. Then the next step would be, for example, each student gets a flashcard, and they need to work with a partner, or they can mingle in class, and they describe the fruit or vegetable to the other people, and they need to guess. If they guess, the person shows them the flashcard. And after that, only after they have heard enough language from you, and there is the language that they can use to give descriptions like color, shape, maybe use. And only after they train to do it with pictures and flashcards, you can actually slowly introduce them to have crosswords. Because they are not really supported with pictures. You can put some pictures on them, but still the main source of information is their partner. And you can teach them to describe some objects to each other and help each other with the spelling. So again, this is quite an advanced activity. And there are several steps to enable your students to do it still. If they are able to do it, this is great practice, because they produce a lot of language, they produce descriptions, they produce shapes, and they remember spelling, and they work with their partner, so they have quality practice. So give it a try. It works really well. I used that half crosswords with 8 and 9-year-old kids. It was difficult first, but then it worked really well. Okay, moving on to the next activity. So this is a high five, right? And another activity that will help you kind of make students produce more language is to play this game. This is a nice team builder and icebreaker, and also just a fun activity to recycle the language. For example, what you need to do is you need to say something about you, and if your classmates, partners, if they do feel the same, they need to say me too, and they need to give high five to the person who was speaking. So this is a good team builder, because it of course has a very positive effect on the atmosphere in class, and it helps students produce the language. What do you think could be the possible problems with this activity in terms of grammar and language? What do you have to be careful with? Can you please think and write down? Now look at the response and think of the possible problem. Exactly. Thank you very much. Oh, Alex, hello. Good to you. That's Alex. Hope you're doing fine there. Exactly. So you have to be very careful, because when you say when the response is I don't, so they cannot say when the sentence is negative, they cannot say I don't. So you have to teach them that they only have to give positive sentences to be able to say me too. Then, right, exactly, Serge. If you have super cool kids, you can teach them so do I and neither do I very often. So this is the language that they actually learn at their A1 level. I would say the second part of A1. So this is the typical language for the course books for kids for level 4, let's say. And yes, so this is the activity that would help you practice move from me too to so do I and neither do I. And why do you think it's important to give a high five? If you have ideas, please write down. I'll give you 10 seconds to do that. Yes, Alex, thank you. This is TPR. And you know, the total physical response, this is something that works magic in kids' classes. And so they will do anything for that high five, at least for 5 minutes until they get bored. So please use that high fives, sanitize their hands. Yes, and this is encouraged, right? So try this activity. It's very nice. Okay, moving on. This is another thing that I like doing with my kids. I like actually doing surveys And this is something that I do in every unit of the book that we're learning. And I will explain why, because this is something that helps me reinforce, practice, consolidate the language that they're learning. Okay, if you look at this, this is just a chart. What I do to my kids is I also put the pictures of the language that they need to practice. Like here, it's dishwasher, fridge, washing machine, laptop, iron, and so on. So different appliances. I didn't have time to do it for this presentation, sorry, but for kids, I always put some nice pictures on top to support them visually and to make the handout more attractive for them. And I always turn this into the survey that they have to conduct in class. So first of all, if the kids are, let's say, either weaker or the second, even the first year, let's say the second, the third year of learning, they cannot produce a lot of language. They probably are not very good at questions. They can just use this to report, to talk about their family. And what they do is they have to tick the boxes, like who is doing what, who is using what. So they tick as many as they think they need, and then they need to report. For example, my grandma uses a dishwasher and a laptop every day. She sometimes uses a vacuum cleaner and an iron. Do you have ideas how we could use these activity like in class for further work and for more practice? If you have ideas, please, adverbs. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Victoria. So first of all, you can teach the students and reinforce the adverbs of frequency, because you see that here we have every day. Exactly. What else is important? We remind them that we have to use third person singular, definitely. Uses, this is important. I'm not very good at drawing without a mouse, sorry. Also, what you could do, if you could actually ask your students to conduct interviews at home, tick the people, and then you could actually teach them work in pairs and find matches. So like, what is your grandma? So you read about your grandma, like for example, Alex is reading about his grandma. I have to listen, and I have to also tick or somehow make another sign for the matches, like his grandma uses the fridge every day and my grandma uses the fridge every day. So I can turn it into a listening and speaking activity for each other. So since they don't get, they cannot actually probably produce a lot of language, you know, on the spot, they can read what they produced at home. They can read the sentences because after the survey they describe what they found out, and they listen to each other and they spot the matches, and then they can report together what they found out, how many matches they have and what the matches are. And this automatically generates more language. So they produce a lot of language because they spot the differences. So why not? Okay, so that was one thing you could do with the surveys. So in that case, they don't practice question form. They don't practice negative form. Here, they only practice just the positive form. They don't have to practice the negative. They don't have to practice the question. And this is how we can increase the speaking and the listening, practice the listening. What is the next step? Look at my next slide. So next we can move to questions. Probably not necessarily in this lesson, but if possible, I mean, in this unit, if not possible, this is something that we will use when we practice questions and we feel more comfortable with them. They can actually conduct surveys in class. They can ask their peers what they use, what they eat, where they go, what they do. So depending on the target language that they're learning. And again, they need to find out and they need to tick so that they could report the results. And then they do some writing like based on the model that the teacher gives them, and they write about one of their peers. What could be the possible follow-up activity, like what could be the possible logical activity after they conduct the survey and write about one of their partners? Any ideas? Drop in the chat, please. Exactly. Yes, Alex, but do you think they will name who they're going to read about? Guess who? Yes, Alex, absolutely. What I would do as a teacher, because it's not interesting if you know that like Daniel is going to read about Eugene, why should I listen? But if I say, guys, Daniel is going to read about one of you, can you please listen and guess who Daniel is reading about? In that case, all the class are going to listen, or at least until their interest dies. But anyway, so when they need to listen and guess, this is what makes the speaker, motivates the speaker to read, and that's what makes the others listen. So it works really well. Okay, moving on. Here we asked questions. Then with the surveys, what we could do is we could actually ask students to make predictions and speculations. Like I think Mary uses her laptop every day. So before they actually ask their partners, we can ask them to speculate what their partners might be using, tick it, and then actually come and ask the partner if they really do that, and check how many guesses they had. So it could also be interesting for some kids, and it would work very well in some classes. Okay, so that's about the surveys. This is something I use quite often, and this is something that helps me, that helps students reinforce the language, produce a lot of language, practice language in speaking, in writing, and practice the listening as well. Okay, Alex is writing something. That's an interesting idea, predictions with other kids. Yes, right, Alex, thank you very much. That's a wonderful idea. So guys, yes, from Alex, he's a very cool teacher. Okay, that's all with the surveys for now. Moving on. Another activity I wanted to show you is ranking. And when we're talking about ranking, we're talking about deciding, for example, what is more important, what is less important. Like we can rank according to price, according to our likes, according to whatever. So ranking is putting into the order, any order that we like. Here, there are things to take camping, and my task could be choose 5 things you would like to take with you. And then students can practice, for example, different grammar. In that case, they practice will. I will take a sleeping bag, a pen knife, a torch, a mobile phone, and a rucksack. How can we actually make this activity work to increase language practice? So my idea, first ranking tasks, students just say what they will take, but then as they move on, as they learn, what changes? We ask them to give reasons. Yes, Serge, that's right. Why? And we teach them because, and we actually teach them to produce complex sentences. And if you look at this, if you look at this sentence is actually super cool because it combines 2 grammar forms here. So we can either stick to one, we can, if we practice will for future predictions, or we can just ask them to use will. It could sound like, I will take a sleeping bag because we will sleep somewhere. But for more, let's say, advanced kids, right, if conditionals, exactly. But this is for flyers and for A2 students, that's possible. Here it's a bit more basic. Here you could combine different grammar, because here, for example, apart from will, there is need. You can revise modal verbs and so on. So it depends on you. It could be something simple. You could stick to one grammar form, but just use them to use that linker because and make complex sentences. Or you can even teach them and practice different grammar forms in one sentence, which is super cool for kids. Okay, so the first step was just ranking. The second step was explaining why. Any ideas for the third one? So there is an idea with the conditional sentences. Like my idea is for the students to work in pairs and for the students to actually discuss. Yeah, right. You're right, Alex, exactly. So they discuss what they want together and they need to give each other reasons. Make sure your kids don't kill each other. Don't do it with little kids. Do it with the kids who feel comfortable working in pairs, who will not cry, who know how to share and who feel good doing one stuff together. So make sure it doesn't cost years. If it doesn't, the production will be amazing, because this is the dialogue that you might expect. For example, what do we need? I think we need a sleeping bag. Why? Because it might be cold. So not just producing a sentence as the monologue, but kind of practicing the language together in a real life situation, because we often have to choose things together. So this is something that helps students cooperate, not just practice the language. Okay, so this is what you can do with this. With the ranking. So ranking is also a very cool activity. Again, make sure that the kids tolerate each other, work well with each other, and will not kill each other and not, end up crying in your lesson. In that case, ranking activities work very well. Okay, one more thing I wanted to show you. This is a mini books for handwriting, and they can also evolve with your students. What you can see, this is a sunflower, but has it been drawn? No, because it is made of words. And you see that here, to make a sunflower, the words have been used, and this is how you make it. So you could actually use the same with your kids, and they can use words to kind of draw things. This is the sunflower. Another example that I'm going to produce right now, I will draw. I hope it will look okay, because I'm going to use my touchpad. Okay, I will draw something, and can you please tell me what it looks like to you, okay? Just write it in the chat. Okay, I think that you can actually make out what it is. So what is this? Yeah, it's a hand, exactly. And what do you think is the next step? If I want my students to practice handwriting, I will ask them to draw a hand, or I will draw the hand for them. And I will ask to write as many words, hand, inside of it, just a moment, as they can. And they have to fill in the whole shape. So it will be probably a dozen words, or maybe more. It depends on what hand you can draw, but they can write down the word hand the way as the word seed is written inside the sunflower, as many times as you can. And why do you think I would want my students, especially like first year study kids or second year studying, why would I want them to do this? What would it help them with? Please drop your idea in the chat. Exactly. It helps memorize the spelling. So because if you write one word 12 times, or even more times, there is more chance that they will. What I usually do with my kids is, not with all of them, but especially first year, second year, is I actually draw something horrible like this hand. It's like, could be body parts. And I actually copy them, cut them, and I make teeny tiny books. I just staple them together. I gave them the books. I asked them that they have to fill in with the names of the words, as many as they can, and they can color the book the way they like it. And this is how I help them practice. Then I let them glue the book the way they want it, let them draw if they feel like it. But this is also another activity to help students remember the spelling. Okay, I'm going to show you the next step for such books. And the next step would be, here it is. Ta-da! Here they don't need to write the shape, but here they have the animal. For example, this is their target language, one of the animals that they have been learning in the unit. And what do you think I would want them to write in such a mini book? Any ideas? Please write down in the chat. Yes, thank you, Serge. Exactly. I would want my students to write down some facts or some descriptions or something else, or maybe some collocations with this word. It depends on the language. But here, for example, it's black and white. It lives in grasslands. It's got 4 legs. It eats grass. So this is the description that students of the first year can produce by the end of the year. And if they have that mini book and they have to, for example, if they learn about animals and if they have to add descriptions about different animals, again, guess how many practice they have, because they have to analyze, they have to remember the facts or find them somewhere. They have to write these sentences. And instead of writing about only zebra only once in the unit, they will write about all the animals that you learn, or about at least about as many as they manage to, or you kind of stimulate them to write about. So again, having a mini book is much more interesting than writing in your copybook. And if they have this mini books, teeny tiny, interesting, they can hide, they can color, so they will be more likely, more willing to write in them. So if your kids don't like writing, it might be something that would stimulate them to write. So the target language can be any. Okay, so that was about the mini books. So that's actually all about the activities that I planned for today. What I wanted to tell you as the final words for this session is that you could actually learn a lot of tricks and the methodology on how to work with kids if you join a CELT-P or CELT-S course. I'm a CELT-P and CELT-S trainer, so I can answer your questions if you have any, but this is a good opportunity to get the Cambridge certificate, CELT-P and CELT-S. CELT-S is for secondary students, which is about 12 plus, and CELT-P is for primary, 6 to 12. So you have a chance to take a Cambridge course, get a Cambridge certificate, which is stress-free, let's say, because it's done after work, and a lot of things are done online. Yes, you are right, Alex. The studying is online, but there will be some meetings face-to-face, but I think that it's also possible to conduct the face-to-face meetings online. We can talk to this about this with like our teacher training department. I think that's actually it's possible to conduct CELT-P and CELT-S online, that probably you don't even have to travel long distances and so on. Yeah, so Svetlana, thank you very much. Yeah, you've got the CELT-P or CELT-S. So this is actually very useful. If you want to go deeper, if you want to learn methodology, if you're not sure that you're doing something right, and if you want to make sure that you do the things correctly and that everything works, or to make things work, so I recommend you taking CELT-P and CELT-S, or CELT-P or CELT-S. And probably this is something you're looking for. Alex, can I do it being in another country? I think yes, Alex, actually. I think that it's a good idea to enroll, and if we have that meetings once a month online, I think you don't have to travel to Ukraine. I know where you are. Yes, I hope you are well. But anyway, so this is the information about CELT-P, and this is about CELT-S. It takes about 6 months. You don't have to work every day. You can choose the working hours that suits you. You will have a chance to practice what you learn. And this is a very good way to actually reinforce what you know or to acquire new skills. All right. Okay, so anyway, thank you very much for joining me today. By the way, one little remark that CELP and CELT-S, they have just been approved by the Ministry of Education as the courses that are that can be considered as the teachers qualification, you know, raising teachers qualification. So it's official, and having this certificate will give you some benefit, and hopefully in the future will give you some extra money for your work in schools. Thank you very much, Lina. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Svetlana. Thank you, Alex. It's actually good to see you on my seminars and webinars. I hope I will see you in person soon. I hope you learned something and you found something to steal, some activities to borrow, use in your class. Please grow with your students, develop with your students. You don't have to be a fountain of different activities. You can use the solid activities that you have, and you can develop them and adapt them to the students' needs and level and ability. So I hope that you will enjoy your work, and I hope that you and your students will like what happens in your class. So wish you a good weekend, and see you in the further meetings and seminars. Bye everyone. Thank you very much.